Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everybody? Geoff, Mosher, and Adam Caplan here for another Inside the Birds presented by our friends at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City, the exclusive Jersey Shore resort of Inside the Birds. Want to wish everybody a happy Memorial Day. Hope everyone's having a great weekend and went out there and enjoyed the time off. But we've got a lot of Eagles stuff to cover. We have transactional news. We're going to go inside that. We're going to go inside a little bit of OTA stuff, as we always say. Not a lot of stuff in OTAs really matters. It's just a lot of, throw the guys out on the field, let's see what they can do kind of things. Although we hear some things, we'll get into it. But when the OTAs are over, we'll have a little bit more on that. And then, Adam, we're going to continue a series that we started last year, a two-part series. We had a lot of fun with this, and so did our listeners and viewers, where we draft. We do an NFC East-only draft. You and I draft our own teams consisting of NFC East-only players. We post the teams on social media. We have people email us who they think has the better team. What we'll do is we'll look back on who we drafted last year. I can tell you this, offensive, we were pretty good. Next podcast, we're going to do NFC East defense. If you look back on our picks last year, not very good. But that's the fun of it. That is the fun of it. Exactly. It shows you a little bit too. It's not just fun. It shows you how things change from year to year and what you might expect this year as opposed to last year. And it also shows you how much teams can change in 1 year from a personnel standpoint. Some guys will be drafting Adam in this podcast, and the next one, we're not even players available for us to draft last year at this time because they either weren't rookies or they were on other teams outside the NFC East. So this will be a fun one. I look forward to this.
Yeah, half the division has changed. Washington's completely changed. The Eagles have two new coordinators. The Giants made some assistant coach changes, and the one that shocked us it shocked everyone is that Mike McCarthy's back. I mean, on the final year of his deal. Talk about like that. Like, it rarely happens. It does happen, but rarely does a head coach come back on the final year of his deal in that market. I mean, you're really going to do this, Jerry Jones? Yeah, you are. Okay, enjoy that one. But they have a defense coordinator change, so it's interesting. Never a dull moment in the NFC East.
Yeah, and there's a strategy involved with the way we draft because we sort of do it almost fantasy football style in that if there's only one good quarterback, right, and you take him first, and there's the other ones, I know I have the pick because you can't draft more than one quarterback, you can't draft more than one running back, more than three receivers, so that makes it strategical from our standpoint. So we'll get into that a little bit when we do it. Andrew DeCecco has been writing some really good stuff on Inside the Birds. He has a good piece on the depth issues at wide receiver. And he also wrote a nice story on Sunday about Nakobe Dean coming back from the injury and all that Nakobe Dean has to prove this year in year three. Adam, year three is what we always talk about, year three being vital because for most young guys, right, it's a contract year. That's when the team is going to decide after year three, most of the time, if they want to extend you or if they don't think that's going to happen, make you play it out. So this would be a very big critical year for Nakobe Dean, not just personally from that standpoint, but also for this defense, for him to fulfill what they wanted from him when they drafted him in the third round. It's a big year.
Yeah, it's true, and they don't care whether the guy's a first-round pick, third-round pick. I mean, and they had very high expectations for Dean. Eagles are one of the few teams that as soon as the guys played the third season, barring something unforeseen, they're going to extend that player if the guys play well. Now, Jordan Davis is different. And we're going to certainly get into him on the show today because we have some information, some interesting stuff that we have here on Jordan Davis. But yeah, unlike no other team, Joe Banner brought this in. It was Jeffrey Lurie back, 30 years ago. And they about extending early because they figured, hey, we take good bets on our players. We're with them all the time. We know these guys pretty well. And more often than not, they're right when they extend players. I'm sure you could come up with some they missed on who they extended early, but there are not a lot of mistakes. They have a pretty good eye for this.
Yeah, 100%. So we will see. Obviously, in the story, Nakobe talked about, and these are from January, where he was saying he knows that he can be the player he wants to be, just got to stay healthy and get out there and have more opportunity. So good story by Andrew DeCecco. He'll continue to write off of OTAs. He'll be at OTAs. He wrote his observations from OTAs last week that were a big hit with our viewers. So he'll continue to be doing that. As far as our Patreon members, we're going to do our Ask ITB live stream. A little bit of a change in schedule this week to accommodate what we can do. We're going to do Tuesday night. So our Patreon members, just look for the information on the Patreon channel. We'll post the link. We'll post the time of it, but it'll be Tuesday night, not our normally scheduled Wednesday night one. We're moving it up a day. Again, you got to get in on this. We have great conversations. It's great intel. It's great sports and Eagles talk. It's patreon.com/inside the birds. And then as part of that, the following week, Adam will do his weekly Discord chat, which you usually do on a Wednesday night, correct?
Yeah, usually, yeah, for 30 minutes. But the cool thing about the live stream Q&A with the Patreons, our people there, is that a lot of stuff we don't talk about here, we talk on there, and it's just that's the great forum for it, and it's pretty cool. And then once we get closer to training camp, we're gonna have some pretty significant announcements from Patreon, which we cannot wait to tell you about. Trust us, folks. We've been dying to do this, but we can't yet.
Right. We also are working on our next Chalk Talk interview, which we'll probably have more information on soon.
Yes.
And those are, it doesn't get as good as, well, it can be, but I mean, be able to get the position coach at Toledo for Quinyon Mitchell.
That was cool.
In our most recent one, and really get real behind the scenes insight on what makes a guy tick and how he rose to prominence. That was really good stuff that we got from talking to Corey Parker, the Toledo cornerbacks coach. So always good stuff on the Patreon platform. Again, patreon.com/inside the birds. There was a semi-interesting transaction, pretty interesting because of the name, for the Eagles. So we talked about wide receiver depth. We talked about it being an issue with Devontae Parker retiring in the last podcast. And Adam, the Eagles did not waste much time in signing someone to occupy a roster spot, someone with a name, a veteran, John Ross, who we had talked about because he was at the Eagles rookie tryout just to be there as a veteran to try to make the team. Now, let's go through his story. He obviously was the 9th overall pick by the Bengals in 2017. Didn't work out. Tremendous speed. At the time, he held the combine record for the 40 that has since been broken. Battled a lot of injuries. Last year, he retired from football. Is that how you understand it, after being with the Giants the year before, I believe?
Yes. So he had been through a lot. Real injury issues at the University of Washington, 4 IR stints in the National Football League. So he retired. He wound up not playing for the Chiefs. He signed an offseason contract in February of 23. And then he told them that the Chiefs said he was retiring. He was placed on the reserve retired list so the Chiefs could replace his roster spot. And recently because all you have to do to come out of retirement is you literally can fax something. I want to play football again, whatever form you have to fill out. It's very simple. They can't say no. The NFL can't say no. If you want to come back, you can come back at any time. So he's back, and he was at the Eagles rookie camp where he practiced for 2 days. He looked good enough to be brought into OTAs. We'll see if he can get out in terms of doing well in OTAs, do well enough to go to their mandatory camp. And if that works out, he goes to training camp. So there's nothing given here. It's on a 1-year make good contract. Means if he wants to get paid this year, he's got to make the roster. He came to the right team. There's a pretty good opportunity here with Devontae Parker's retirement, which certainly the timing of it was odd, to say the least. Players typically don't retire right before OTAs start, since they're not mandatory. Kind of odd, but hey, he had a good reason. He announced that he wanted to be with his family more. Nothing wrong with that. Good for him. Good luck to him. But going forward here, there's a wonderful opportunity here for John Ross to continue his career. And look, the Eagles, we actually reported this 4 years ago, I think. They actually talked to the Bengals about John Ross. They want to see about his availability. And I remember so many teams have told us this. The Bengals they'd rather a guy walk so they can get a compensatory pick. They don't like trading. Like they did trade Joe Mixon. So give the Texans credit for finagling Mixon. That's a pretty good trade for them because I mean they're a really up and coming team. The Texans are, but the Bengals just don't like trading, so they let him walk. They declined his 5th-year option, and he wound up signing with the Giants. Didn't do too much there. He got hurt, and it's just a shame. I remember you and I did that show. We were doing the draft for the Fanatic, and the 2 significant things happened in that first round. The shocking trade up by the Bears, and nobody knew it at the time who it was for. We're like, Mitch Trubisky, what? Really? Oh my God. When John Ross went at 9, It was one of those we heard late first, early second. We checked with people close to him and said the same thing. They were actually told early second. And this was just like, you can't make this up with a Bengal. Like, John Ross this early, 9 overall. What? That's just a mistake, and it's a shame. But he look, he ran well enough to get signed, and we'll see what happens. That's the beauty of this is that it's OTAs, no pressure. The real pressure though will come at the mandatory camp when the physical play gets ratcheted up. Like, you can't tackle anyone, but there's certain things you can do which you can't do in the OTA period. So we'll see. We
Yeah.
wish him good luck. We'll see.
Yeah, definitely. And to your point, there was a time in 2000 at that draft, 2017, where I thought that John Ross could become an Eagle if the Eagles were going to trade down. I think they were at 14, right? And they took Derek Barnett. But the Eagles were interested in him because of the tremendous speed he had. If you remember, they went into the year that year. It wasn't, they had Torrey Smith, right? They had signed him as a free agent. They had Nelson Aguilar in the slot. They had Zach Ertz, and they had Alshon Jeffrey. Alshon Jeffrey, a really big body type. They didn't really have a pure speed guy other than Torrey Smith, who was, a couple of years into his career. I think he was only on a 2-year deal. So I had heard that the Eagles had put some work into John Ross, but not top. I think everybody was blown away when he went 9th overall to the Bengals.
Yeah.
And then everybody said, well, that's the Bengals for you. So
This
that's the year
crazy.
McCaffrey went too, right? McCaffrey went like
Yep,
top.
to the Panthers. Yeah, yeah.
Where'd he go? 4 or 5? Something. He went really high, right?
And I mean, he's obviously a great back who actually had his best year of his career with the Niners at 27 years old. Pretty good story. But yeah, that draft, of course, was here in Philly in 2017, where
Yep.
everybody wanted Reuben Foster. Oh boy.
Oh
Not
my
everyone,
God.
but a lot of people did.
That's sort of like the forgotten story about the 2017 draft. The Eagles passing on Reuben Foster and everybody killing the Eagles for it. And then so he got drafted, if I remember, by the 49ers, right? Late in the first round.
Yep.
Then he, his off the field troubles that he had at Alabama continued. No, wait. Yeah. And then he got signed by Washington. I remember the 49ers cut him after either a year or a year and a half. Then Washington signed him and he just never panned out there. And then he faded into obscurity.
He suffered a torn ACL, and that kind of set him back. But yeah, he had some off the field stuff, and he just couldn't get out of his own way. And he was in one of the satellite leagues. I can't remember. His name came up over the last couple of years. But getting back to this, so yeah, look, John Ross has got an opportunity here. We'll get into OTAs and some of the guys who are getting a little bit of a run here, and it's always interesting because we don't talk depth charts. They literally mean nothing. As Chip Kelly I used to laugh when he'd say that they're written in sand. They don't mean anything because they're just coaches. They'll tell you they're rolling players in, and I agree with it. Based on 25 years in this business, covering this thing, they don't mean anything. They literally don't mean a thing. It's just you'll see a guy. I remember it was really funny. One of them some years ago, Kevon Wallace got work with the ones, and I'm like, this is just absurd. Kevon Wallace is a fourth safety. Like, this means nothing. And it went up nothing. And then in training camp, he got work with the ones. But it was just to give some of the veterans some time off. And again, he's been on 4 teams now. So I don't worry about that. What I think is significant, though, or potentially, and what I call it somewhat predictive, stuff means a lot to me over the years when I see it, because some things you can get fooled sometimes, but you should make this note, because you had the note last year, and this is the best example of it, of Nolan Smith playing inside backer. And once you know it, he got snaps at inside backer in the season. Not a lot, but that's why when you see guys being lined up at different positions, take note of that stuff. That stuff could be important down the line.
100%. All right, we'll get into, on that note, we'll get into some quick notes from OTAs. Before we do that, let's pause for a second to hear from our friends at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
All right, Adam. One of the things that I think OTAs did present to us, at least the one that was open to the media that Andrew DeCecco wrote about, that we can discuss, is Kellen Moore's offense. And We know that Nick Sirianni's offense was one of the lowest usage of motion shifting in the NFL. And no matter how much he said he didn't like to be last in anything, he would always wind up either dead last or close to last in that category. We knew Kellen Moore had a history of using a lot of motion and shifting. And lo and behold, in the one OTA that media has been allowed to observe, there was a good amount, based on what I read from Andrew DeCecco and heard, of some motion shifting, things like that in the offense. So that to me is, when you say you look for certain trends or things that you think have significance, that's one.
Oh, that's big. In fact, just to give you an idea of how big shifting is. So shifting is something that they didn't really do under Sirianni, but it's you line two tight ends up here if you're watching this on YouTube, and then you might shift them over to the other side. You might have a receiver line up in the slot. He may move over to the other side. This is, by the way, and this is a little bit of an extreme example, but what made the Rams best show on turf, they did so much shifting of their personnel. They didn't want you to get a beat on exactly, and they kind of had to do it because the receivers were smaller, but they did not. They wanted to get a certain matchup. They wanted to get Isaac Bruce on, if they could, if Mike Martz could do it, the opponent's weakest corner, and it would work. And plus, because the league had no idea what to expect when Kurt Warner was the quarterback in '99, when Trent Green tore his ACL in a preseason game, he brought in something like the league had not seen. Now there's more motion now in the NFL than probably ever, but it wasn't a big thing in the '90s, and Mike Martz brought it in. And Kellen Moore, he doesn't have, I know he doesn't have Mike Martz stuff in his background, but he moves guys around to get matchups. That's what he's big on that. And you're going to see AJ Brown line up in the slot. That's for matchup purposes. Because let's say because the Eagles' base offense now is going to be 11 personnel, which is 3 receivers, 1 running back, 1 tight end. If that's what they're going to do, like we believe it's going to happen, if they line them up in the slot, which probably will happen, which they really didn't do before much at all, someone's getting a mismatch like that. And especially if that team tries to match up their nickel, if another team is static, it doesn't move their nickel corner around to make sure he's not matched up on AJ Brown. If the nickel corner gets matched up on AJ Brown, look out. Like that's you're looking for matchup stuff.
Yeah, and just for our viewers and our listeners to understand, there's a difference between, as you were just describing, motion and shifting. Shifting could just simply be taking a wide receiver who's lined up either in the slot or what they would call reduced split, which is inside the numbers, and then pre-snap, you flex him wider outside the numbers. It could be taking a tight end who's lined up in line, and right before the snap, he lines up, he moves to a flex position. It's different than the motion of what you see in a Shanahan offense, where you have a wide receiver running orbit, or you got a slot receiver running across the line of scrimmage, and there's jet motion, orbit. There's all sorts of types of motions. For example, the New England Patriots under Tom Brady, you would not consider a heavy motion team, but as Clay Harbor told us, you would consider them a heavy shifting team. Brady was always moving someone in a small spot to a different spot right before the snap, just to get a better read and a tell.
Yeah, the offense that New England ran with Brady was the Ron Earhart offense. That's the one from that Belichick learned from the Giants, and that's heavy tight end shifting. So let's go over to the Rams. The Rams, they reduced their receivers, and part of it's because they're not the biggest guys in the world. You're not going to ask Cooper Kupp to be a traditional outside receiver. He may line up outside, but you'll see him move inside to reduce him. It means closer to the tackles. He's really a slot receiver. You'll see he might. So if you're charting, you might list him as an outside receiver, like he line up outside, but he really didn't. He was reduced inside because he's not going to win as a pure outside receiver. He's just not strong enough physically. And what made Puka Nacua so incredible is they reduced him and Kupp, and Puka Nacua as a quasi slot receiver he's bigger physically. He dominated the way that they used him, and that's just great coaching. And I'm so interested to see once you get more to the mandatory camp, because at this camp they're really only doing 7-on-7s, a little bit of 9-11. They didn't really do any 11-11s. I'm interested to see at the mandatory camp, which is 3 days in June, because you're going to get some tells there. That's when you could really see, okay, this is what this thing's going to look like more. And because now it's a little bit harder. Plus, a lot of guys aren't practicing. So, but this is going to be cool because this offense is completely different from Sirianni's thing. It's like night and day.
100%. As you just mentioned, we're not going to discuss depth chart stuff. I mean, there are too many guys who are not even there. They don't have to be there. Everybody wants to know, what's that mean? James Bradbury isn't there. Well, who cares? I mean, it's very likely he's not going to be on the team anyway, as we discussed. And even, does it make sense for the Eagles for him to be there? You don't want him, pulling a hammy or tweaking anything. Like, let him stay away. And it doesn't make sense for him to be there.
Right. And just so you know, his money's fully guaranteed. So it doesn't really matter. It's not like they would be keeping him out, because what happens is, let's say you were trying to move a player, a veteran who you know is not going to be in the team in the fall. And let's say his salary is $12 million and not guaranteed. You're worried about him getting hurt. You don't want him practicing. Like, you send him home. Whereas here, it doesn't matter whether he's here or not, because his money of $10.8 million is fully guaranteed this season. So even if he got hurt and it was a devastating injury, he's still on the hook for. They're still on the hook for it anyway. So, we'll keep an eye on it. We'll keep an eye on it.
Right, but they might want to at least be able to trade him at the end of camp and get like a 5th round pick or a 6th that becomes.
Right, you don't want him to get hurt,
right.
though.
So
right,
you wouldn't want him to. Yeah.
I'm just talking about them being on the hook for it. They're on the hook for it regardless if he's here or not.
Correct. All right. So a couple of observations that we feel comfortable discussing. We'll go through some offense, go through some defense. Kenny Pickett, obviously stepping in. He's under a lot of scrutiny, you would say. All indications are he looked fairly comfortable throwing the ball. I think that's a pretty good. Let's compare it to last year. We were already skeptical of the Marcus Mariota signing. And did I go to the OTA, the first OTA? I know Andrew did, but I remember he was throwing interceptions in even as early as OTAs. So we were already worried about it, and then some of those fears were starting to be confirmed just at OTAs.
Yeah, Mariota really struggled in the mandatory camp and training camp. It was a use a Cosell line. It was a tough watch. It was now I'll just tell you about Kenny Pickett. See, first of all, these are the coaches will tell you we call these passing camps. These are basically flag football camps. It's 7-on-7. You're just obviously there's no physical play. Running backs always look good because you can't touch them. They all look good. In fact, if you don't look good, there's something wrong with you, really. But these are passing games, so the quarterback should look good. Now, the other ones sometimes when they don't look good, like Caleb Williams had a rough. The word around the Bears is he had a rough OTA the first couple of practices, but he's learning a completely new offense. So you gotta know that when people are critical of Caleb Williams. Understand, like, offense that he's playing is completely different than he played in college. So there's that's part of it. Whereas here, they're just learning a new offense. But as we've noted, when Kellen Moore was named the offensive coordinator, he runs a very quarterback-friendly offense. It's about as quarterback-friendly as it gets. I've talked to people who've worked with Kellen before. It's a great offense to play in. Players love it. The one knock on him is because they know what he's doing. He's shifting and motioning players to create matchups. But what happens is you start getting up on the line. The way I heard it 2 years ago when things got a little stale late in 22, I think it was, teams just started getting more physical with his DBs and with his receivers, and that obviously they have the tape. He knows what happened. They weren't as successful, but it's a high powered thing, and they go fast, man. Kellen has incorporated a lot of stuff that he's learned over his career with his mentor Scott Linehan with Detroit, when Kellen was a backup quarterback, and Mike McCarthy from Dallas and others. So we'll see what this looks like. But this offense, if Juergens could handle himself well, and obviously there's going to be a drop off. We know it's coming without Jason Kelsey, but as long as the drop off isn't too bad, and then Tyler Steen isn't too bad, right guard, this is a top 3 offense. I mean, it knock on wood, everyone's healthy, because with Saquon Barkley here, we've never played with a line like this. I know the other 2 guys will look questionable. The 3 are studs. The other 2 guys we got to see. But the potential, I should say, the upside for this thing is top 3.
That would be good. That's what the Eagles are looking for. Part of that is also, as we talk about, getting the running back involved in the passing game, right? Remember last year, and this is why.
Yeah, I know.
This is why we say it's OTAs. So you're hopeful, but sometimes things happen during the course of the season where it just doesn't manifest. So last year, there was a whole lot of attention to throwing the ball to DeAndre Swift in both OTAs and training camp. And same thing here. You're seeing a lot of passes in OTAs to Saquon Barkley. Let's get that pass offense going. Let's get that ball to the running back. Let's get him on routes. Will that happen during the season? That remains to be seen, but you know that they're working on that, right? Because it didn't for DeAndre. He had his fewest catches and receiving yards of his career.
That was a stunner. I mean, it was, you and I went to this one practice and we kept looking at each other like, this is crazy. He's every play is to DeAndre Swift on a check down for him line up out wide, sometimes in the slot. And by the way, Barkley line up in the slot. Will Shipley line up in the slot last week. But here's a difference. Kellen Moore's backs do catch the football. The data shows that Pollard did line up as a receiver at times a little bit. So now, like you said, there's no guarantee. We learned our lesson from last year. What looks to be interesting sometimes is not. But again, this is a completely different scheme. The way he uses personnel is completely different. This is gonna. I'm fascinated to see if Hurts has the buy-in, because his predecessor Wentz did not like checking it down. They want to throw the ball downfield. Jalen's a pretty aggressive thrower, which we didn't know in 2020. Certainly didn't know much about that 21. We saw it in OTAs at 22. One of the reasons why I was so bullish on the Eagles is Hurts took a major jump in 22. Arm strength, confidence, and all that. But yet this is another offense he has to learn. So we have to see. We're going to reserve judgment because we totally missed on DeAndre Swift getting the ball in the pass game. It wasn't for lack of effort, at least on our part. We can tell you folks what we see and what we know, and just didn't happen. But I'd be stunned if the backs don't get the ball a little bit, at least more than they did last year for sure.
How big is Paris Campbell just being out there and healthy, do you think, for his bid now with Devontae Parker retired? And I mean, John Ross, I think, would have to have an unbelievable training camp to make the team. I know people got excited because of his name and his draft pedigree, but Paris Campbell to me is really the one who has the opportunity to seize here.
Listen, he has to show up. They don't have any wealth of experience. Think about it right now. Let's just go over this quickly. Johnny Wilson, rookie, 6th-round pick. Very intriguing player, but he's a rookie. 6th-round picks, they got to prove themselves to make the team. He should make it. He's a guy that's got a lot of ability. Anaya Smith could only play in the slot, and he's coming back from an injury, so he's not ready yet. Covey is only an inside receiver. Joseph Ngad, who got a lot of work in this last week, he wasn't drafted. Austin Watkins, okay, was not drafted by the Niners. He's been with a bunch of teams. The Eagles like him. They gave him some guaranteed money. Shaquan Davis also wasn't drafted. He's got very little playing experience. We like Jacob Harris. He got a nice run last week. They have no experience. I mean, literally, if Paris Campbell gets hurt or for some reason he looks fine from what we understand, I mean, he looks healthy and all that. I mean, I don't know what they're going to do. They got a major problem with depth now that Parker retired. Now, on your point about Paris Campbell and his 1-year deal, 420 grand is guaranteed of his 1.3 million. Not a lot of money. So he's got to prove himself. This is a guy that we reported this as soon as they signed him. He got benched by the Giants. He was healthy, by the way. He just didn't do well. Nothing off the field. Didn't do anything wrong. He just didn't produce in practice. And the head coach makes the decisions. Daboll didn't want to play him. And he's on a prove it deal here. Boy, do they need him though, man. He's a good player, but he's been hurt too much. And they got to look at that receiver market. We mentioned this last week, man. The veteran receiver market on the street is brutal for outside receivers. Really bad. Really bad.
Let's talk up front. I don't think any surprises. Tyler Steen obviously got the first crack at right guard, which we expected him to get. He had a really good press conference where he said, hey, I'm not being given anything. I have to earn this. So he had really good perspective on it. Lane Johnson was not there. Again, don't have to be. It's voluntary. So Mekhi Becton got the run at right tackle. Who do you think would have gotten the run? I mean, Mekhi Becton was literally signed like the week before that. I wonder who would have been the right tackle. Would they have moved Fred Johnson, do you think, to right tackle in that case?
No,
or just kept him at left tackle?
I'm sorry?
Or would they have tried Steen at right tackle and then played Hennessy at right tackle?
No,
I don't know.
Steen would absolutely not be playing right tackle. They want this to work. Everything we've heard, he's a good kid. He's got the right attitude, but we mentioned, I think it was probably last June, when we said be careful of assuming Steen's going to be the starting guard because his technique, he's way behind. We had no idea how far behind he was, to be honest with you. I mean, he was so far behind they wouldn't even let him compete for the job in training camp, which I thought that was a mistake. I know Jurgens did well, but I mean, to not, and obviously he was way behind. Look, they know better than I or you or anyone, but man, it was, I mean, he just got like no reps. And that set him back. So, you know, and Trevor Keegan, we noted this when the Eagles drafted him. He's a left guard. He does not have any right guard experience. He's going to have to. In last week's camp, he was a left guard. There were questions we were told from scouts around the league that they just didn't know if he could do it. Like, being smart is one thing intellectually, but it doesn't guarantee you anything. We know this about Suapeta. It took Suapeta like 3 or 4 years. In fact, I remember when that's actually in my notes here. First 3 years, he only played one guard position, and then because we were told they didn't think he could do it, or they weren't sure if he could do it. And then we saw it in an OTA, that not the mandatory camp. In the OTAs, they cross-trained him like, oh, this is interesting. We had not seen this before. And it wound up happening. He did play both guard spots to close his career with the Eagles. And by the way, he was getting work with the ones with the Bucks because some guys were not practicing. So we'll see what happens. But Tyler Steen, it's there for him. But the thing is, Hennessy took some reps behind him. Hennessy's also the backup center. Hennessy, the problem with Matt Hennessy is 19 starts at center, 3 at left guard, none at right guard. I don't know if he actually got any snaps just as a backup to go into a game at right guard, but he never started at right guard. I mean, the Eagles are kind of telling you, if you look at it here, it's like, okay, we're not handing him the job, but we don't really have anyone who could take the job for him at this point.
Yeah, like the guy pushing him has only started 3 games in his career. Is that what it is? Has he started any games at right guard? No, none. Has started 0 games at right guard and just 3 at the guard position altogether. So it makes for a really fascinating conversation about depth and the Eagles offensive line. We're used to them having all these guys who've stepped in and at least done this, done that, but this is a little bit of a changing dynamic on the Eagles offensive line. As you mentioned, Keegan playing left guard, the rookie out of Michigan there. So we'll see again. We'll see what happens with the mandatory camp when everybody who's supposed to be there is there, and what the combinations look like. And it might be even at the next mini camp, you may have a veteran or 2 show up who didn't show up at the last one. So we'll keep you updated on that.
Right. Yeah. And also by training camp, I wouldn't rule out them signing a veteran guard. And actually, there's some decent ones out there. They're not a lot, but they're guys who've started games before. The only question would be is if they could play right guard. But see, the thing is, for the Eagles standpoint, do they want to bring in someone who actually compete, or just as an insurance policy? That's the thing. But we'll keep an eye on it. But there are some names out there. Mark Lewinsky, who started a lot of games with the Giants, started a ton for the Giants, and Colts. Dalton Reisner's out there. Excuse me. Matt Filer, who's played guard and tackle. Greg Van Roten, who has actually played some decent ball. He's much older. He's near the end of his career. Who played decent football for the Raiders. You might remember from University of Pennsylvania. Billy Turner could play guard or right tackle. Max Garcia could play center or guard. Then it's just, that's pretty much it. But there are some names out there.
So did you say Mark Lewinsky, the starting right guard for Adam Kaplan's NFC East offense last year?
Was he last year?
He was.
Man, I missed on that.
He was
one.
the last.
I must have run out of players.
Yeah, that was your last overall pick, and I had already taken.
See, that's why.
Who did I take? We're gonna get into this a little bit later, but I had taken Zach Martin, and your only choices were basically Glowinski or Sam Cosmi or so nobody else really that would have. Who was the Eagles right guard? I guess it was it was who was playing right guard for the Eagles last year? Why can't I think it was like Jurgens? Yeah, he started right guard, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you chose Glowinski over that. Now, hey, who knows?
Over Jurgens? Did I really?
I guess you did, because that was your starting right guard.
Jeez,
Mark Glowinski. You had some question marks about Jurgens.
Well, we didn't see that. The thing was with him was, from a functional strength standpoint, you just don't know.
We weren't even sure, by the way, he was going to be the starting right, because at OTA we were still thinking it might be Steen. They drafted him with the 3rd round, so yeah.
And we got that late information. I'm thinking we must have done the draft before we got that information on
Yes.
the technique was poor, because had I known that, I never would have drafted. I would have probably, because that would have told me Jurgens is well ahead of where we thought.
Right.
And look, Cam's a pretty good athlete. I'm fascinated to see, because playing center now, where he doesn't have a ton of experience, it's going to be different. We'll see. See how we do.
No doubt about it. Speaking of great athletes, Jordan Davis, the big story on him is he shows up and he looks like he's lost a lot of weight. His physique looks completely different. Well, we talk about this a lot. I feel like every OTA, everybody's in the greatest shape of their life. Everybody has reshaped their bodies. There's a difference between losing weight and getting in shape and being NFL conditioned to play. There's a lot of big difference. Brian Dawkins used to say, yeah, that's great that you can look good in shirts and shorts, but when you put the pads on, do you run as fast? Are you as dynamic? Because that's where it separates like the men from the boys, you would say. But so it's good that Jordan Davis, though, it has slimmed down. I think that's a positive development, obviously.
Yeah. So a couple things here. We noted last year. In fact, we might have. I can't remember. We might have put out what his weight was, but anyway, we were told last time this year, and it actually turned out to be true. And we're gonna push this a little forward here. He was in the best shape of his life. He did show up to their off-season program in good shape. He was in the building early in the off season after the Super Bowl, working out. It was great. We saw this in training camp. It looked good. And he got off to that great start. The tape was really good, where you're like, wow, this actually might be a breakout season for him. Weeks 5, 6, you start to see it dissipate. See, this is what I think with Jordan Davis. He never played this many snaps in college. And you just mentioned the conditioning. It's one thing to be in good physical shape, but you don't, when you've never been pressed to play a ton of snaps, way more than you ever played in your life per game, you got to build up endurance. You got to build up a tolerance for it. And by the time the second half rolled around, he lost his technique. Remember, we were told, and Cosell told us this in our pregame show. Greg said he's getting stood up again. Technique's bad. And Greg was very critical of Davis's first year, was so strong on his praise, because he only goes by what the tape shows him. And then we checked back with Greg and our people we'd speak with, and everyone seemed to agree the tape was not very good. Now, as we move forward here, this happened Sunday. So I was doing Fox Sports Radio. I do a hit on there every Sunday, and Jeff Schwartz is a host, one of the hosts on there. And Jeff Schwartz and I were talking about this, and he brought up something I don't know if I've heard this before. He said, because I kind of laughed, he said he would put weight on during the season. I'm like, Jeff, how's that possible? Wouldn't you put it on the offseason? He goes, here's the thing. After, not only do you not put pads on in the regular season, hardly at all, you don't practice as much, and you have more free time, and he would put weight on. And because I brought up Jordan Davis, he said, listen, it wouldn't surprise me if he put weight on in season. I'm like, I would have no idea. I never asked if Jordan Davis put on weight, but he said, you got to understand, for us, it's a little bit harder to stay in as good shape because you don't work as much, although you're lifting. But in terms of stamina conditioning, it's just different once you get in season. I was like, that's a good tip. I had not thought about that. So
yeah,
that's something we're going to look at.
Yeah. I mean, you're for 4 to 5 weeks. I mean, you're out there in the hottest of hot suns for an hour and a half a day. I mean, yeah, you get your days off in between, but yeah, you practice way faster and harder in camp than you do during the season when you have like these short turnaround. Right. Think about the Thursday night games. You don't even practice on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. You do walkthroughs for Thursday night games. So I could see pockets where you're just not getting the same conditioning that you were in camp and OTAs. That's a really interesting note. So we will see. We'll continue to monitor Jordan Davis from that regard. At linebacker, shouldn't be a surprise because Vic Fangio teased it, but Zach Baun getting some run at inside linebacker. And this is clearly a spot where they want to see if he can play.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean he won't play outside linebacker where he primarily lined up. Remember that the Saints run a different scheme. The Saints run a 43. A lot of teams play 34 or hybrid stuff, but Saints do not. And Vic's defense is different, so he does play 2 inside backers. They're the only backers on the field. The other guys are edge rushers. They're really not linebackers. So Baun got some run at inside backer last week. Again, we'll keep an eye on this as they've only had 3 practices. We'll keep a look on what happens this week, and then once we get to the mandatory camp, does he cross train or does he do both? Because again, he's got to learn. Not only does he have to learn how to play inside linebacker in the scheme, he's got to learn it. It's a completely different scheme that he played with Dennis Allen's scheme and with the Saints. So this is a guy who was an edge rusher in college, and he's been a good special teams player. But I'm fascinated to see here because the Eagles have a pretty good competition at inside backer. Devin White is obviously going to start, barring something highly unforeseen. With Nakobe Dean, it isn't working yet. But Trotter, we'll see what he can do, and Burks and Van Sumeren and Brandon Smith. But overall, they're going to have some competition once that mandatory camp starts, and it's the last 3 practices before they're off for the summer till late in the summer, until actually late July. That's going to be fascinating to see what happens here, because guys know it. There's an opportunity here. That's why Zach Bond's here. That's why Burks is here. There's an opportunity here for guys to kind of restart and recharge here.
There you go. In the back end, some interesting stuff. You had Isaiah. People were sort of making a big deal about Isaiah Rodgers being the starting corner on the outside. Well, James Bradbury's not there. Keely Ringo's not there. Isaiah Rodgers,
Rick's got hurt.
And Rick's wound up getting hurt. I mean, plus the guy hasn't played in a year. They got to get him out there. They want to see what they got in him. It was no surprise to me at all that he was outside corner. And plus, again, as we've said 1,000 times, in Indianapolis, he was mostly an outside corner. He does not have a lot of nickel experience. They will get a look at him there at some point, but
yeah, just so you know, there are 3 types of nickel players. There's nickel inside, nickel outside, and nickel safety. So he was a nickel outside corner. Kenny Moore was a starting outside corner for the Colts, and then when they went to nickel, he moved inside. So I think that people got confused about what happened there.
Right, he was a nickel back like Rod Hood. This is what Rod Hood would do back in the 2000s, right? He was the nickel back, but he would play outside, and Sheldon Brown would move inside to the slot.
Interesting.
So
Rod
was
know
the
that.
nickel outside corner.
Oh,
yes.
I always thought that's interesting. I did not. It's such a long time. What years was Rod Hood here?
I want to say 05, 04 in that range, because then he wound up signing with the Cardinals. I think, in 06. So I think he was with the team for. I think didn't he make it as either a late round pick or an undrafted free agent?
UDFA, I think.
Yeah.
That was a good evaluation on him. I didn't know that, but that belies the point there. There's this misnomer. Oh, nickel only can play slot. No, it's not the case. In fact, you can go through 32 teams. Not all of them are slot corners. Depends on the club. But the reason why Rodgers clubs thought he could only play inside or project more to the inside than the outside is because of his body type. 5'10", 175 to 180. That by body type that projects to play inside. But we'll see. The word we got is conditioning's good. Like got there, of course, he couldn't work with the Eagles, so they didn't really know. And once he got reinstated, they saw, and conditioning's been good so far. We'll keep an eye on it. As you mentioned, the hot weather. See, it's good. It looks great now, but once it really means something, and man, it's getting warmer now. By the way, last week it was got in the 80s over the weekend. Once it really gets ratcheted up, when everyone has to be there in the mandatory camp, and we'll see how everybody works together. Quinyon Mitchell looks very smooth. I don't care that he didn't run with the first team. It doesn't matter. It's all about how these guys look in terms of, okay, are they moving well? You just want to make sure. Again, it's OTAs where there's like no competition. Guys are just learning the defense. You want to make sure guys look like they should. Because I remember the late great Gil Brandt telling me, this is an amazing story. Like apparently, I don't remember the player who he was talking about, but whatever. They got the wrong 40 time on a player, and the player went up not looking like they thought because the 40 time, whatever they got was wrong. And once they got to their off-season program, the guy was not what they thought. That is crazy. So yeah, like let's say some draft pick the Eagles had doesn't look like they thought on tape. That's a problem. I remember Bill Polian telling me that.
Yeah.
Bill said that because I asked him that question. Anyone ever surprised? He goes, "It's happened before," and you go, "Uh-oh. Let's just see what happens." And I don't know if the player looked better in the mandatory camp or the training camp, but he did say like there was a player who didn't quite look as good as they thought on tape. So you never know.
If I recall correctly, I think we were hearing some like on Donnell Pumphrey in
Oh,
2017
here's
coming
why.
out of OTAs.
He looks okay. As someone with the Eagles then said to us, or to me, it was the year before we started doing our show. He looks small and plays small. Darren Sproles looks small, played big. Big difference if you understand. Played big. The scouting term played bigger than his listed size. Pumphrey never played in an NFL game. I'm pretty certain of that. Regular season.
I think you're correct about that.
That's
Yes.
crazy.
Crazy. Fourth round pick, was he?
Yes, leading
Yeah, this is not like a
rusher.
6th or a 7th round pick. It was a
Was
4th
he?
round pick.
Wait, I just want to make sure we're clear on this. He
Mhm.
went to San Diego State, correct?
Oh, was it Fresno? Oh yeah, San Diego State. Yep.
Now I'm not gonna look it up, but I thought if either he was one of the top rushers in San Diego State history. He didn't have better numbers than Marshall Faulk, did he, at San Diego State?
Oh, I would have a hard time believing that.
I know. But
Did Ryan Matthews also go to San Diego State, or did he go to Fresno State?
Fresno, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But the hype on Pumphrey, because he was so explosive. I mean, he
led the FBS in rushing yards, by the way.
There you go.
It's that year.
Right. But here's the problem. I remember how bad he was in training camp, or like he didn't show up at all. The coaches wanted him off the roster in 2017. He was so bad because they didn't want Corey Clement was so much better than him. They like the word around the personnel staff and the coach staff was like, this guy Howie better have Clement over him, at least A, on the pecking order, and B, if it's between Clement and Pumphrey, which it never was, who's getting a roster spot because Pumphrey was making because he was a draft pick. But if Clement wasn't above him in terms of the pecking order on the depth chart, once it got to regular season, then this is not right. And obviously Clement was a stud, and they were not winning the Super Bowl without him, which is crazy to say as an undrafted free agent, but it was true.
Wow. Yeah, I just looked it up. Donnell Pumphrey in college rushing yards
Don't say it.
at San Diego State. Not only is he the leader,
Oh my God.
he blows away Marshall Faulk. He's got 6,405. Well, he also played an extra year, so I think that matters. But
Okay,
Marshall Faulk finished with 4,786. However, there's another running back who played for the Eagles who has the single season rushing record for San Diego State. Can you name him?
Can you give me the time frame
that he played for the Eagles?
Yeah,
last year.
Oh geez. Obviously, Rashad Penny.
Yeah.
Who the coaches were so down on and so out on him. That was that of the history. This is our 7th year of doing the show. I don't know of a player that I was so excited about let me down so badly after like we put this out on our show then that he didn't look good. He looked heavy. He said that was BS. Whatever information came out of him not being in good physical shape, he shot that down. But we were told he just didn't look right.
Yeah, and that's what we were told.
Yeah, and listen, folks, when the coaches won't play a player, you don't need to guess what was going on.
Yeah, it's not like they didn't want him to be good.
Yeah, they didn't want to play him. There's your answer, folks. What was the comedy? So was it the Minnesota game? Everyone okay, so Scott got hurt. No one was available, so they got forced to play him.
Yes, it was the Minnesota game. And what's his face? He had to come out.
Was it Scott? I can't remember. Go ahead.
No, it was right. It was Scott had got hurt, and DeAndre Swift had already had 28 carries in the game.
Okay.
And he had to come out and get his cleat fixed for one or two snaps. And they got him right back onto the field after that. They gave 2 runs to Rashad Penny, and that was
up the middle, and they got him out.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question without looking. Was that his only playing time he got the whole year?
No. I think there was 2 other games that he got 1 carry in. So
ridiculous.
I know. I mean, when you're getting out, when Boston Scott can't figure out your role, then you know you're
right. Exactly. The thing I didn't understand is why the only question I had during the season was why don't they just cut him? We knew for a fact the coaches didn't want to play him. Well, why did they cut him?
No, by the way, still the biggest mystery of last year.
But by playing time, they gave you the answer. They wouldn't play him because it was the coach's decision, and they didn't believe in him. There you go. Just look at playing time. That gives you the answers to the test. Why not? Why was he on the roster? That's the thing I'll never understand why he was not cut in season. There was no point of him being on the roster. Anyway.
All right, moving on. You mentioned Quinyon Mitchell looking the part. Obviously, Cooper DeJean got his chance to play where you would expect. He got to play in the nickel as a nickel inside corner, and then also as an outside corner on a different team, like first team, second team, which is not a surprise at all. Avonte Maddox getting some of his normal nickel reps, but they are so thin at safety that they looked at him at safety as well, which again, not a surprise. They're so thin at that position. I'm sure they're giving themselves every opportunity to look at what they've got. I think Mekhi Becton also, who played hybrid positions last year, got some
Mekhi
run.
Garner.
I'm sorry. Yes, Mekhi Garner. You definitely did not see Mekhi Becton in the defensive backfield.
Hey, by the way,
Freudian slip.
Yeah, exactly. Is there any NFL team in history with 2 Mekhi's on the same team? Curious.
That's a great question. That is a fantastic question. No,
Spelled the same way, first name.
Yeah. So so obviously you're seeing a lot of moving parts on the back end, which is to be expected.
Yeah, and then DeJean played sub inside, sub package inside, played outside as well. At some point, we expect him to get work at safety. I couldn't tell you when that's going to be. It's up to the DC. By the way, he's played big nickel before. It's not a secret. He did it years ago with Denver. So we'll see what happens here. But the thing is, if they're hell bent on getting DeJean on the field as a rookie, he's like as an outside corner. It's going to be Mitchell and Slay. You got Ricks and Ringo, who did some good things last season. Ricks played more. It showed versatility. Ringo, we have to see. Late in the season, he put some good reps together, but he's got a long way to go. And Rodgers is there too. Josh Job's really only a special teams player, but yeah, I don't know I just don't see him playing a lot on the outside. And then and if he's going to play inside, Gardner Johnson could do it. And by the way, best nickel corner, he was really the best nickel his last season with the Saints. He was phenomenal on tape, phenomenal.
All right,
and we know
stuff.
Yeah, we know how great CJ was with the Eagles this 1 year here. So I don't know again, we're only in May now, so we have a long way to go. And you want to project this stuff. I'm fascinated to see. Again, I think the mandatory camp, those 3 days will tell us a lot more. And plus, he's learning. He's learning a new defense. He played mostly in zone at Iowa, so Eagles play a lot of zone, but how you play zone is not going to be the same exactly, not even close to the same as the way they played here at Fangio. So we'll see what happens.
Absolutely. All right, we'll have more as we move on into the other OTAs and then later the mandatory mini camps. Let's get into our NFC draft. Before we do that, we are going to pause and hear a word from our friends at Sky Motor Cars.
Sky Motor Cars in Westchester is a different sort of dealership. All it takes is one look at their Highline pre-owned vehicles that people all over the country want and need. Owner Brett Schiller, make sure you don't spend a dime of your money before you purchase the car. Sky Motor Cars allows you to make all the decisions regarding your next vehicle. At Sky Motor Cars, you never have to spend more than necessary. Visit SkyMotorCars.com today or call 610-918-7225.
And if you hop into Sky Motor Cars out there in Westchester, PA, make sure you tell them Adam and Geoff sent you. You'll get a great deal, and you can always visit them at SkyMotorCars.com. Just like they see in the commercial, SkyMotorCars.com.
Yep.
All right, so let's recap the draft last year, Adam. I was trying to see who had a better draft. We both had really
very
good
quickly,
drafts.
yeah.
Very quickly. Yep, you had the first pick. So you had Jalen Hurts as your quarterback. Your running back was Saquon Barkley. Your 3 receivers, Terry McLaurin, Devontae Smith, Brandon Cooks. Your tight end was Dallas Goedert. And your offensive line from left to right was Jordan Mailata, Tyler Smith, Tyler Biadasz, right guard Mark Lewinsky, right tackle Lane Johnson. That was a stellar offensive line of yours. My offense was Dak Prescott at quarterback, Tony Pollard at running back. My wide receivers were killer, man. A.J. Brown, CeeDee Lamb, and Jahan Dotson. Totally whiffed on tight end Darren Waller. Left tackle Andrew Thomas, left guard Dickerson, center Jason Kelsey, right guard Zach Martin, right tackle Terrence Steele. I had a pretty good offensive line myself. So neither of us were great at running back because Barkley and Pollard didn't have great years. I guess I win the quarterback. Dak had a better year than Hurts. But I think the clincher here, having A.J. Brown and CeeDee Lamb really was big for you had good receivers, but I had some elite guys right there. But you killed me at tight end, and the offensive line were pretty similar there. So good stuff.
Yeah, let's roll.
All right, so you get the first. We're going to keep it consistent. You get the first pick this year for NFC East offense.
But we should switch. You
want me to take the first? Okay.
No. I just want to do it this way because this is a great suggestion 2 people gave us. Okay, so if I have the first pick on the first player, you have if I go if I have the first pick of quarterbacks, you have the first pick at running back, I'll have the first pick at receiver, I'll have the first pick at, you switch off.
Oh,
You know,
okay.
yeah,
All right.
because to even it out, yeah, that's because I don't know how we did it last year, I forget, but that's
Yeah, we
the-
just did. You have to have one quarterback, one running back, 3 wide receivers, a tight end, and then one of each offensive line. And it didn't matter where you picked it. So that's okay. I have
no, well,
problem.
okay, so bottom line is we should switch off who gets to pick first per position.
Okay.
I'm sorry. So, wait a minute. So you're going to go. So we're going to start. So basically, because we're not going by position. We're not by. So the way you're going to go is, okay, you could take whatever you want first. You could take AJ Brown first if you want. I see what
Right. Right.
All right, but let's just switch off. Okay.
Okay.
So like the first round, these are our first round picks. Who goes first? We both pick 2 players in the first round.
Okay.
Like, let's say you're going first in the first round. I go first in the second round. You go first in the third round. I go first in the fourth round.
So a little like a snake style.
Yes, because that's what they said. It was
Gotcha.
a little bit more even if you do it that way. I like that idea.
All right. So then you're going to go first, and then
Yep.
I have 2 picks before, and then you have 2 picks, and then I have 2 picks. Okay. I get it.
Yep.
All
We're
right.
only doing offense, so go ahead.
No, you go first.
Okay, I'll go first. In the first round, 101. 101. 101. Because
This is a challenge, right? You got to think of
I
where's
know.
the thinnest positions and where can you get good talent later, because I've already taken one.
see, receiver's really deep, but you see AJ Brown, no offense to CeeDee Lamb, who's a numbers monger for fantasy. He puts
Mhm.
up monster numbers. AJ Brown's just a better football player. So I'm looking at him. I'm looking at Lane Johnson. I'm looking at Andrew Thomas, who says, if the guy could stay healthy, for goodness sake, geez, with his hamstring problem last season. And obviously Barkley. I'm going to go Saquon Barkley.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay.
Now why? Why?
Smart, because
Here's
there's
why.
there's
Here's
no
why.
other running back who's going to touch him. Go ahead.
That's it. The talent differential between him. No offense to Brian Robinson, who I like, and Devin
Mhm.
Singletary had a career for Houston, but there's nothing special about him.
Right.
And the Giant. Dallas. I mean, Dallas is a joke. I mean, right now Zeke is back as their starter. I mean, you got to be kidding me. So it's the talent differential between Barkley and Robinson. That's why I'm going with Barkley, who I know Joe Banner. I talked to Joe recently. He really thinks that Barkley will just absolutely blow it up with the Eagles. He thinks he's going to do so great here
Mm-hmm.
because of the offensive line. He's never played with an offensive line like that. I said, okay. And he likes this offense by Kellen Moore. Joe knows Kellen Moore's offense pretty well. He thinks he'll just crush it here. I'm like, all right, you convinced me. Saquon Barkley.
All right, that's I love the sense. I'm going to take the same exact philosophy you just took, but at a different position. I'm going to take Lane Johnson as 102.
Yep.
He's my first pick, Lane Johnson. So then I get to pick again, right?
Yep.
I am going to take. I flirted with another position that's very thin here, but it's not that thin or that significant. So I think I'm just going to fortify my offensive line and go Jordan Mailata left.
Oh man. Well, see now on your point earlier, I don't have to take Andrew Thomas now.
No, you don't. You don't.
But I do have to take AJ Brown here.
I probably should have taken Andrew Thomas.
I thought you were gonna.
Okay.
Oh, you wait. You said you should have taken who?
I should have taken Andrew Thomas. Actually, he's actually better than Jordan Mailata. But I
he
just
can't stay healthy. I mean, he
can't tackle. Right, health is an issue.
Hurt a lot. So I'm taking AJ Brown. The best player left on the board is AJ Brown.
When
I say that, Dickerson, really good. He got a mega extension. Zach Martin's still available. My guy Tyler Smith has been an unbelievable story. Now again, if we're differentiating between left guard and right guard, that's another issue. We're just taking guards overall.
Mm-hmm.
But AJ Brown if he could play 2 more years here, you're talking about HOF possibility. This guy's an absolute stud. I warn people, don't get caught up with the Titans numbers. They were non-passing offense with Derrick Henry. He's in a passing offense like no other. What else could you say? What an unbelievable trade. It's going to go down if he could stay healthy, and he has been, other than the playoff game. If he plays 2 more years here, which he probably will by contract structure, he's signing his extension.
Mm-hmm.
Assuming he plays 2 more years here, relatively injury-free, this will go down one of the best transactions in Eagles history. Right now, it certainly looks like it's headed that way. I don't know what else to tell you. This is just, this guy's an unbelievable player.
All right, so you finished off then the second round getting AJ Brown there, right?
Yep.
Is that how it worked? Because you picked Barkley, then I picked Mailata or Johnson to end the first round. I started the second round with Mailata. You finish it with Brown. So now you start the third round, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Ooh, see, I see McLaurin and Devontae being very equal.
Mm.
And remember, both offenses have changed now. The guy who could have been the Eagles offensive coordinator almost was Cliff Kingsbury, but he didn't. He's now the Washington OC. So Andrew Thomas, I don't have to draft now. I'm drafting. Didn't really want to go all Eagles here, but I'm going to with Landon Dickerson. Zach
Oh,
Martin's
nice
older.
one.
Yep, I
Nice
got to
one.
do it. Landon Dickerson.
That's good. Right. And plus Zach is really right guard, right? You're taking a left guard here.
Yeah,
So
yeah. And Dickerson is I got to be honest with you. I'm surprised he's this good with it, with all the knee problems he had in college.
mhm.
It's and obviously give their medical staff tremendous credit and Howie Roseman credit for taking this. I mean, it was a second round pick
Mhm.
who they had a first round grade on, I think, if I remember, if I recall correctly. But anyway,
Yeah.
the guy's way better than I thought. We knew he was good, but to be this good is a little bit surprising based on the injury history. But hey, what could I tell you? He got his extension. He's a stud.
All right. So you start round 3 with Landon Dickerson. I'm going to finish round 3 with Zach Martin because I'm worried about right guard depth. Obviously Tyler Steen, who knows there, who knows with Washington what they're going to run out with Cosme or something, or maybe somebody that they signed. So I'm taking Zach Martin, and then that finishes off the third, and to start the fourth. And I'm glad you didn't go wide receiver, because if you had taken Brown and this wide receiver, I would have been killed. But I'm taking CeeDee right here and giving myself CeeDee Lamb. So I've got 3 building blocks on the offensive line with Mailata, Zach Martin, and Lane Johnson. And my first, skill position player is CeeDee Lamb to start the fourth round. You've got Barkley, AJ Brown, Landon Dickerson. How are you ending the fourth round?
Devontae Smith, got to do it, man. I didn't want to
Nice.
go, but again, what am I going to do? The best player on the board, man.
Yeah.
BPA, man. I mean, I've got my 2 stud receivers, got the stud running back, got Dickerson. You stole my Lotta from me, so I can't do that. But there's still some good players on the board for my third receiver, and we'll see where else we go.
All right. Good, good. So where are you going to go next to start the fifth? You need, you need quarterback, you need one more wide receiver, tight end, left tackle, center, right guard, right tackle.
I'm going with Scary Terry. Terry McLaurin is an absolute stud.
Oh, you're killing me now.
I had to do it.
Oh, that was a
receivers.
strategical pick. Yes.
And I wanted CeeDee over Devontae, but when I saw whoever I took in front of him, I just thought it was a better value. So I'm going to go with McLaurin here. So I got Brown, Smith, and McLaurin. I got Dickerson. I've got Barkley. I mean, I've got an absolute all-star team. This is going to be tough to beat.
Yeah, like my only other recourse now is to go get I don't know. I'm trying to think. Do I go get center is just like I can't be sure Cam is going to be great. I mean, Tyler Biadasz is like your constant, but he's not. I mean, do I go? All right, I know what I'm going to do. All right. I mean, you're hitting me where it hurts. I don't have great receivers because you took 3 of the best 4. So I'm going to at least take the best tight end right now and take Dallas Goedert away from you to complete the 5th round.
I'll be honest with you.
You might. I know.
No, but I'm saying
he's good.
Jake Ferguson put up really good numbers.
I know.
Is Goddard a better football player? Probably so, but he's not been consistent enough. We know about the injury history. But that's okay. It's okay.
Yep.
It's okay, as Herman Edwards would say. I think it was Herman.
Yeah. And now let's see. I don't have to move. You already have your left guard. You already have man, what am I gonna do here? This one's tough. Man, you killed me with the receivers, man. At this point, I think you're right. You just go best available talent, right? And at that point, it's Tyler Smith, the left guard for the Cowboys. So I'm gonna have listen. I'm gonna have a killer offensive line. It's gonna be tough. I got Mailata, Tyler Smith, Zach Martin, and Lane Johnson. So I'm gonna have to be comfortable with that.
Yeah, I don't even know. I'm assuming John Runyon. I think he's going to play left guard.
For the Giants, right?
Yeah, I mean, right guard. I'll just take my right guard late. Who cares?
Yeah. So let's see. That's my 5. 1, 2, 3. You've got 1, 2, 5. So I have to start the next round. You know what? Let's do it. Let's go and hope this thing works out, because when we look back on this, you might say, what a great pick by Mosher there. We're going Malik Neighbors at wide receiver here, the first round pick for the Giants. So I'm going to have CeeDee Lamb and Malik Neighbors as my top 2 receiver. Hey, maybe the guy's amazing and has a great year and makes me look good.
With Daniel Jones, yeah, it's going off the ACL. How many players have you drafted so far? Just make sure we've done this right.
So I have drafted 7 and you've drafted 6, if I'm not mistaken. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh no, 5. Did I just mess that up? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. No, that's right, because you are going to finish this round and then start the next one. So you'll be good.
This is my 7th, correct?
Your next 2 picks will be 6 and 7. Yeah.
Okay. So, all right. This is what it comes down to: quarterback. Because I'm going to get the tight end that I wanted anyway, Jake Ferguson. I'll get Andrew Thomas. So I'm going to be good. My right guard's just not going to be very good. I mean, this, whatever. I could live with that. But it's just what I think about. I love this game for Jalen Hurts. I really feel he bounces back. Prescott had a very good year last year. I don't. The playoffs was an embarrassment for him. That Dallas just didn't show up. Like the Eagles didn't show up. Just a matter of what I mean, who you like better for this season. To me, because I'm set at receiver. I have my 3. I'm going to get everyone else. I'm kind of locked into right tackle with Terrence Steele, and so this pick is going to be a quarterback. Oh, by the way, Dak's on a contract here. I'm going with Dak Prescott. They're very aggressive with Brian Schottenheimer's the OC, who doesn't call the plays. McCarthy does, but he's an analytically driven guy from talking to people who work with him.
Sure.
So I'm going to go with Dak, and they're going to continue to throw. And by the way, they're going to have to, because they can't run it with Zeke. Are you kidding me? Please.
Hey, listen, I love the philosophy behind it. Dak had a better year than Jalen Hurts last year. There's no question about it. Dak was my guy in this draft last year. You had Jalen, and then we didn't have to worry about anybody else. Yeah. So, yeah, look at your playmakers. Dak Prescott, Saquon Barkley, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Terry McLaurin. I mean, that's a heck of an offense right there.
Boom.
I mean, I'm sitting here with Malik Neighbors as my, and Dallas Goedert and CeeDee Lamb. So you're getting me so far.
You know what's crazy? Malik Neighbors for fantasy is going like the 3rd or 4th round. I can't see it with Daniel Jones coming off the injury.
And then that offensive line and everything, it's still not great.
Yeah. I don't see it. Long term, yes, but they got to figure out.
You got another pick here: tight end, left tackle, center, right guard, or right tackle.
I'm going to take Biotish, the center for Washington.
Smart.
Cam has more upside. Cam Jurgens has more upside, better athlete, but he hasn't done it yet. He hasn't been a full-time starter at center, so I'm going with Biotish.
All right, smart pick there. I am going to take here. I need a running back, and I'm just going to take Brian Robinson. Has a chance. Washington should have a better offense, better offensive coordinator. They have added a little bit to their O-line, and maybe Jaden Daniels winds up being a really good quarterback, and that opens them for the running game. We'll see. So I go Brian Robinson there.
Okay, what's your next one?
So then I would start the next round. I've got an opening at wide receiver and an opening at center. Oh man. Let's bank on it. Let's go Jahan Dotson here and really hope that the Jaden Daniels thing works. I mean, the guy's a 1st round pick. He has played well in spurts, just not consistently, but they haven't gotten good, consistent quarterback play. Maybe they do, and he, becomes a really nice receiver. Not proud of this 3, but it's what I got.
Yeah, but Jahan Dotson, boy, before he had the hamstring problem in his rookie season, got up to an incredible start. And that scheme that Eric Bieniemy ran was just ridiculously, like, as much as we love passing, it was just overkill. And he just didn't get the ball. It was really odd. he's talented. Yeah, he's and they're going to be heavy 11 personnel anyway, so he'll get plenty of work.
There you go. All right, you're up for 2. You got a
All
tight
right.
end, a left tackle, a right guard, and a right tackle.
All right, so we'll just knock this out. Jake Ferguson is so underrated out of Wisconsin. Really had a good year.
Yeah.
I'll go with him as my next pick. I'm very happy with, and with Michael Gallup cut, Jalen Tolbert, they're 3, and I don't know how much he's going to get the ball. So Ferguson for fantasy too could have he did a good job, by the way. He was kind of sneaky.
I like the pick.
Yeah, I'll go there. And then the next one is by default, Terrence Steele, who's come back from a torn ACL, did okay, not great, but he's come back from it, hung in there. He's my right tackle.
There you go. I've got a center and a quarterback opening here, so I'm just gonna go ahead and I'm gonna take Jalen Hurts. If we were doing fantasy, you could maybe make an argument for Jaden Daniels with his running ability. Jalen doesn't run as much, but maybe he will again. But I mean, I wouldn't take Jaden Daniels over Jalen Hurts, even in fantasy. I'm just talking about when you add those sort of rushing yards and maybe long explosive runs and things like that. But no, I go Jalen Hurts as my quarterback. And of course, my center is I'm gonna go Cam Jurgens. I don't really know what to expect from Dallas' center. I think it might be the rookie Cooper Beebe, but that's a competition that's got to be played out. And who else would I have? The Giants center is not a guy that I think is a very
John
good
Michael
player.
Schmitz.
Yeah, I wasn't even a fan of him coming out of college. So I go Cam Jurgens and hope it works out.
Okay.
Now you finish it off with right guard and left tackle.
Yeah. So Andrew Thomas, obviously, the guy's a stud when healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And then right guard. Yeah, I heard from what I understand, Cosme is going to stay at right guard for the Commandos. Had we been doing this in like late July, and if we heard Tyler Steen was really doing well and advancing, I'd take him here. Can't do that. I don't know who Jermaine Illumino, who I met at the Super Bowl. I don't know where they're lining up Jermaine. I don't know if he's going to play right tackle, right guard. He could play either.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you took Martin. So I guess I'll just take Sam Cosme, the former tackle out of Texas, who is playing guard for the Commanders.
And that's how the strategy goes. I went great in the trenches. I have an elite offensive line. You went with just elite playmakers, man. I can't touch your offensive playmakers, but you would have a tough time matching. Your OL's not bad. It's very good on the left side.
Give me my OL real quick before we go out of here. Let's go over our 11.
Yeah. So your total team is Dak Prescott's your quarterback, Saquon Barkley's your running back. Your 3 receivers are A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Terry McLaurin. Your tight end's Jake Ferguson. And from left to right on your offensive line, you go Andrew Thomas, Landon Dickerson, Tyler Biadasz, Sam Cosme, and Terrence Steele. So your left side's good, but
really good.
The right side struggles. For me, it's going to be that receiver, right? My quarterback's Jalen Hurts. My running back is Brian Robinson. My receivers are CeeDee Lamb, Malik Neighbors, and Jahan Dotson. My tight end's Dallas Goedert. And my offensive line from left to right is Jordan Mailata, Tyler Smith, Cam Jurgens, Zach Martin, and Lane Johnson.
You know what, though? Here's again, Neighbors is dependent on the quarterback, but CeeDee's a stud. He puts up numbers. You can win with him. He could play inside or outside. Dotson they didn't use him correctly. Cliff Kingsbury will get this guy the football. Now, again, you can't compare to my group.
You don't have to worry about any of your guys getting the football.
Right, exactly. I don't have to worry about that. But I'm telling you, Jake Ferguson, don't sleep on him for fantasy. Guy's good.
There you go. All right, great stuff. You can email us at insidethebirds@gmail.com if you want to vote whose team you like better, or you can hit us up on Twitter @InsideBirds and let us know. We always have fun with this.
YouTube comments. Yeah,
YouTube, of course. Anywhere you can leave a comment, we'll figure it out. We'll find it and we'll tally it up. All right, that's going to do it. Next, obviously, episode we'll finish with the NFC East defense draft. This was fun. I enjoyed it. Hope everybody did too. That's going to do it for this episode of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles intel. As always, we thank you for flying with us inside the bird. Be sure to check out our friends at PHLSportsNation.com. They're enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams. For the fan, by the fan is their motto. So make sure you check him out at phlsportsnation.com and on Twitter at PHL Sports Nation.